We're here to show you guys how to do a idle air control valve delete on a Mazda MX-6 KLDE engine. The things you're going to need are, this is a plate that goes over a, it's a metal plate from Home Depot that goes over conduit boxes, like light switch block off plate kind of. It was like $1.60. Then here's your idle air control valve, a new throttle body gasket, some Permatex Ultra Black silicone gasket maker, some wrenches, a jigsaw, vacuum caps, and a hose fitting to connect the two coolant lines, because you're basically going to be doing a coolant bypass mod. The reason why you do a idle air control valve delete would be because this little sucker here breaks a lot, and it's old and hard to find. They cause bouncy idles, stuff like that. Basically, the vacuum comes through there, and these are coolant lines. You're just going to connect these two coolant lines, aka coolant bypass mod, and then you're going to cap this part off on the intake manifold. First off, you get your plate there, which is, somewhat thick steel. You take it and you trace it with Sharpie, and this is going to be your template for a block off plate, because you're going to remove this from the car and you're going to just block that off. Using your jigsaw with a metal cutting blade, start to cut through. You can see I've started there. Start to cut through the metal in the general shape of the outline. The idle air control valve is on the bottom of the throttle body. That's what you're going to be deleting. So I've just got this fan blowing on my engine right now to cool it down because I just came home from a drive. Go ahead and remove the throttle body elbow there. Remove those things about from there to there, and then you'll be able to start pulling off the entire throttle body. So I've just about finished cutting this out. I'm just going to round off some of the edges. Make sure that you wear your proper safety glasses when you do this, because I just had a chunk of that corner hit me in the eyeball. Scared. So I'm wearing glasses now, but once you get the basic shape, you just want to round out the edges and then get ready to drill your holes. I just finished cutting it. Now I'm going to get ready to drill the holes, and we're going to put this sucker on. You want to get a drill bit that's just a tiny bit bigger than the screw you're trying to put through it. This is actually a 15/64, but anything around that size will work. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to take those little X's from where the holes are going to come through and just give it a tap with a nail and a hammer to give your bit a place to start to bite in. You're going to want to drill through from the side that's going to be mounting to the idle air control valve itself, because the little burrs are going to pop through on the other side. It'd be a good idea to leave a little bit more, leave some extra metal around where you're going to drill the holes. I'd cut it really close. You can always cut off more later, but I cut it pretty close, but luckily mine didn't have a problem. This is somewhat thin. I mean, it's still like 16 gauge metal or whatever, but it'll still bend a little bit when you put pressure on it. So now you're going to want to just put this on the ground and hammer down those burrs, or remove them, and just make sure this thing lays flat. Now you can use a grinding wheel like this, or mine's actually not hooked up right now, so I just use my driveway and just sort of sand the edges of this to make it so it's not so sharp, because you don't want to cut your hands when you're sticking your hands in the engine bay. Once you've removed the throttle body elbow, you will see four, I believe they're 12mm bolts holding the throttle body on. And there's your idle air control valve. Remove those bolts. Make sure you disconnect the throttle cable from the throttle body itself. And also disconnect the plug for the throttle position sensor, but don't mess with that sensor there, because you want to keep that in the same orientation. There are two nuts up top and 2 bolts down below. Down here where you can see this blue hose, there are 2 vacuum hoses that go there. Make sure you don't mix up the order. There's 2 I already unplugged one. The one that I routed up through this cruise control mechanism is the one on the far side towards the back of the car. That's just a note for myself. Then you have to unhook those little hoses that are on the bottom of the throttle body. I mean the idler control valve. I'm going to go show you guys that on the idler control valve I have off of the car. This is a big vacuum line underneath you're going to have to unattach, and these are the 2 coolant lines you're going to have to unattach. Right behind the VRS solenoid on the driver's side, not the solenoid, the valve, right in front of that there's the vacuum line that you're going to have to cap off. It's like near impossible to pull it off the bottom of this idler control valve, so just undo it on that side, and that way you'll be able to remove the second coolant line. I've already removed the first, and pull off this entire throttle body assembly. Literally, once you get that little vacuum line off, it's not a little one, it's massive, huge vacuum line right there. I had to use some vice grips and a screwdriver, and this isn't even my first time doing it. Then you can just pull this off and undo the second coolant hose down there. Once you remove that second coolant line, you can pull the whole thing out and sigh a sigh of relief, because that was terrible. And once you got it out and on this bench, you can inspect it and see that massive hose that you were not going to get off there. So you pulled it off there. Now you're going to work on removing this piece, same thing as that, and installing your block-off plate. Instead of this, there's just going to be a plate right there. You'll never have to deal with this again. These bolts on the bottom, they're not really bolts, they're screws with a Phillips head end on them. They tend to be really stuck on there. So hit it with some WD-40, and if you can't get it, put it in a vise, push down with all your might on the bolts, and turn the screwdriver with a pair of vice grips. I did up having to put mine in the vise, but I got all those screws out. Make sure that you don't mess them up too badly, because you do have to use them to reinstall your thing. And I am bleeding a little bit, so it's not a project until you bleed. Now I've undone all those, so you should be able to just lift it right off. There you go. Goodbye, old idler control valve. If I test you and you're still working, I'll sell you on the internet. And now we're going to go ahead and install the block-off plate. You want to wipe this down really well, make sure that you're going to have a good sealing surface, and then go ahead and apply the gasket, instant gasket stuff all around the edges of this thing, and if you want to on the insides too. I've got the gasket material all over everything. I put it on nice and thick because I refuse to have a vacuum leak. I put it on the plate as well. Now, per the instructions on the gasket material, I'm going to put them together and put the screws in. It says to tighten them finger tight, let it dry for an hour, like finger tight until it squeezes out, let it dry for an hour, and then tighten it to specs. I got it on. This hole had to be drilled out a tiny bit, but I got that to work. Now I've just got it on there, decently snug. And I'm going to let it sit for an hour, just like the instructions, and then I'll tighten it up. But basically that's the new bottom of your throttle body. Just give you some shots of that. It's going to be so much easier in the engine bay. Now while that's drying, we can go ahead and deal with the hose situation in the engine bay. Over here, we have some hoses that need to be reattached. You've got the 2 coolant hoses, one in, one out. Then a vacuum nipple there, a massive one that will ruin your life if you don't fix it. So I bought these vacuum caps from O'Reilly's, and they go everywhere from 3/8 through 3/4, so that'll be the perfect size. And then a barbed hose fitting that is 5/16 of an inch. That'll be perfect for those coolant lines. while I was down here, I bumped into our old friend, the EGR valve. Let's see, where am I aiming? Over there. Yeah, I was debating whether or not to just get rid of that, because I've got a block-off plate from King 6 Fabrications. That's where the coolant line is going to go. I think I'll probably just leave it in for now, because so the sensor doesn't throw a code. But basically you're going to take this coolant line and you're going to attach it to this coolant line with that barbed hose, and use the hose connectors that come with the hose clamps that come with it. I have decided to go ahead and remove this EGR valve that I blocked off a long time ago. There are two hoses coming into it. One coolant hose is the one that goes to the throttle body. Then there's another one down on the side. I don't know if I can show you guys that, but there's another one down there that is basically in and out of it goes from there into the EGR valve, through that, into the idle air control valve, and then back out through that one. So you're just going to eliminate, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the EGR and the idle air control valve and just connect the coolant line straight through. And then you're going to want to cap off the vacuum line that comes to the EGR valve down there. Again, if you are just doing a coolant bypass mod, or if you are just deleting the idle air control valve, you just need to connect these two hoses that came out of the bottom of the idle air control valve. Got this EGR valve out. This thing's a beast. Did not want to come out. It looks like a squid. It's stuck in there just about as good. There's the coolant lines. Comes out of there underneath the level with that screw thing, and back into where the thermostat is, I believe. Be cautious, because for some reason I was touching, I guess, the area around the throttle body or those things or something like that, but something was shocking me every 5 seconds. I think it may have been because I was touching the positive battery terminal. But so there's the coolant situation figured out. EGR valve is out, finally, after years. Now it's time to put it all back together. The rubber cap fits over the port here, and I found one that was a little bit smaller than that. Sprayed some oil on it to lube it up and make sure it's got a really tight fit on there. You do not want a vacuum leak. And I dropped it. The cap on there, and now you're going to want to unscrew your idle control screw on the throttle body. You can't see it here, I don't know why I'm pointing at this. But on the throttle body, you want to unscrew that all the way, because that's how you're going to adjust your idle. Let this sit for a while. I'm going to go ahead and tighten down these screws, and then we're going to get the throttle body back into the car. This is the perfect time to prove that my throttle body does seal correctly. You see I've got water in there, and it's not coming through. And then I'm going to open it a little bit. Come on. There, and the water leaks out. So my throttle body seals correctly. Now we're going to get it back into the car. I recently replaced this throttle body gasket not too long ago, so it's actually in really good condition. But I'm going to go ahead and throw some of that gasket sealer on there anyway, on top of the gasket. And if your gas is good, you can reuse it. If not, you can buy another one. They're like a couple of bucks. There is a little vacuum hose that is what the EGR valve attached to back there. Make sure that you put a cap on that. I almost forgot to do that. This is the comparison with the idle air control valve and without it. It's a lot less hassle, a lot less things to go wrong. I have not reinstalled the little duckbill thing over there on purpose because I hate it. I think it's stupid. Make sure that you have everything lined up right, and go ahead and reinstall it using your bolts. That's the part I've been talking about not putting back in. There's not really any point in it being there. There it is. Not installed. Go ahead and tighten all the screws, and you want to reconnect the throttle position sensor. You don't have to reconnect the idle air control valve because, hello, it's gone. Reattach the throttle cable and the intake piping, and then you want to run the car to try and fine-tune your idle, because it should be all controlled mechanically now. It's pouring down rain right now, but I'm almost done with this. Make sure that you hook up those vacuum lines that you disconnected. One of them comes from the intake elbow and one comes from the other thing. The ones I had through the cruise control, made sure I put back closest to the trunk side of the car. Made sure I hook those back up right. Now I'm going to put the intake piping back together and start it and see how my idle is. I got everything back together, but I'm going to wait to do the tuning, quote unquote tuning, on it until the rain dies a little bit more. And then I'll get you guys a video of the idle. I've put a canopy over the car, and here it goes, the first start. Okay, I'm going to go try and adjust that. Alright, that's a lot better than it's been in a long time. Wow. I know it's still a little high, but maybe I'll drop a little or once it warms up a little bit more. I bled the coolant and I reinstalled everything and tightened everything down. I've got a code 16. My phone is wet, so I'm not sure what that means right now. I think it's an O2 sensor code. But there's the idle. It's lower than it was before. And it goes up a little bit, but that's where it was before. But basically I still have my idle problem that I had before, but this eliminated it being the idle air control valve, because you guys saw I did that. This eliminated the throttle body as being not sealed correctly, and also eliminated the throttle body as not working right. So there's some kind of other vacuum leak, I fear, in between the intake manifold and the head from the accident I was in. But anyways, no more idle air control valve, no more EGR valve. It's been a day and a half, 2 days since I deleted my idle air control valve. At first I was a little hesitant on the results because my idle seemed to still be high and bouncy just like it was before. But after 2 days, I don't know if a couple of heat cycles settled some things down with the gasket, but it's idling like it was before I got into that accident. It's still high, but it's not bouncy anymore, and it'll slowly bounce sometimes, but a little, give it a little blip on the throttle and it goes back down and it holds a steady idle. And now I don't have to worry about the idle air control valve being any cause of my problems anymore. I do have that one check engine light, but that's from the EGR valve that I removed. It's not really the removal of it as much as the unplugging of the electronics with that. But I'm very happy with my idle air control valve delete. If your idle is normal where it should be, deleting your idle air control valve will not raise that. It will just leave it the same, and you won't have to worry about that anymore. Total time it took me about 2.5 hours, but I did let the silicone stuff sit up for a full day, a full hour. So if you know what you're doing, you can probably get this done in about 2 hours. Thanks for watching.